Little Stella, her father Tom, and her mother Duangphone joined some neighbors on the streets in the year 1992 in Donghai, celebrating a traditional ritual. The local people have a legend about a time long ago when there was a ring that could bring prosperity and abundance, but those who stole it were consumed by greed. These men fought over the ring, and it broke into pieces. A demon then appeared and killed those men before casting a curse of famine upon the village. Nowadays, the locals perform this ritual every year, hoping that one day the demon will forgive them and bring abundance back. The group sets up various meat dolls at the edge of the forest and begins to pray. When they hear a roar, they look down in respect. After the ritual is completed, everyone heads home, but Stella notices that her uncle Jambo remains near the forest. That night, Stella wakes up to a noise and sees Tom stealthily leaving the house. He enters the forest with his gun in hand and observes the pieces of the meat dolls hanging from the trees. Eventually, he finds the demon devouring the meat, and it roars at him before disappearing. A terrified Tom hears another noise and slowly turns around, only to find Stella. After Tom confirms that he went out to look for the demon and the ring, they hear another strange noise and start moving toward a bright light, but freeze when they hear more roars. Noticing a nearby cabin, Tom orders Stella to hide there and hands her a radio, asking her to make a call and say a specific code if something happens to him. Then, Tom approaches the light alone and finds the mythical ring floating in the air. He activates his mysterious bracelet, and the ring begins to descend. However, at that moment, the demon appears. The bracelet starts to malfunction, and the ring rises again, shining so brightly that it frightens the demon away. Suddenly, the ring shoots a massive beam of light that reaches the sky, which Jambo sees from his home. Stella also sees the light and rushes to find Tom, but he has disappeared. She watches the floating ring as the light also fades and something falls from a nearby tree. When Stella checks, she is horrified to find a lifeless body. More human parts begin to fall around her, so she runs to hide in the cabin and calls for help. When a body crashes through the cabin's roof, a terrified Stella runs out again, dodging the bodies without realizing they are falling from a mysterious light in the sky. Upon exiting the forest, she finds a waiting car. In 2023, in Bangkok, a recently divorced Stella is in charge of an exhibit space at a museum. However, after a mistake that was actually her boss's fault, she is fired. That night, Stella informs her daughter Valen that they will not be going home because it was a work benefit, so she is looking for a place to spend the night. At that moment, she receives a call from Donghai informing her that her mother is sick, so Stella agrees to visit. The plane tickets are paid for by her cousin Ithi, who also picks them up at the airport. As they approach the village, Stella recalls the morning after the incident. Duangphone and Jambo tried to tell her that Tom abandoned them, but Stella insisted she saw bodies falling and that her father may have been taken. Jambo scolded her and said she dreamed it all. In the present, Stella visits Duangphone in the hospital. The elderly lady mentions Tom's code, saying it is time for Stella to find her father. However, Stella believes it is just fever talk. Later, Stella goes to her old house and discovers that Jambo is so desperate to buy it that he offers much more money than it is worth. Stella refuses and decides to live there for now to be close to her sick mother. She also notices that Jambo's son, Kong, looks exactly the same as the last time she saw him. He even seems younger than she is, although he is older. Later, Stella teaches Valen that they must always take care of themselves, which makes her remember how the kids in her village used to tease her for being half white. When the kids insulted her mother, little Stella fought back against them. The boys would flee when they realized Kong was watching, confirming he looked the same back then. Every day, Stella tried to say the code on the radio, but never received a response. In the present, Stella tries the code on the radio again, with no success. In the middle of the night, a voice on the radio wakes Stella. It is Tom, who thinks he is talking to Duangphone and says that if she has the bracelet, she should take it to certain coordinates. Stella begins to write everything down while trying to talk to him, but soon realizes it is a recording that ends shortly after. The next morning, Stella asks her mother about this. Duangphone explains that she has kept in contact with Tom since Stella left for college, but only once a year. Tom said that 1 year on Earth equals 1 minute in the space-time where he is. He wanted Duangphone to retrieve the ring using the bracelet, and activate something called klee in the basement of an abandoned military facility. Then she would have to input the coordinates to bring him back. This confirms that Stella's incident was real, and she promises to rescue her father. Afterward, Stella and Ithy ask Kong to steal the bracelet from Jambo, which matches Tom's. At first, Kong refuses because he doesn't want to get into trouble. So Stella begins to point out all the mysteries in the village. Only Jambo can enter the forest, and he also hasn't aged. Desperate for answers, Kong agrees to help. That night, Kong waits until Jambo is deeply asleep and takes the bracelet and the gun that are next to him. Then he, Ithy, and Stella enter the forest, not realizing that several circles of light have appeared in the area. As the trio explores the woods, Stella receives a call from Valen, who is waiting in the car. She thinks she saw someone nearby, but Stella says it was just a shadow. However, a woman can be seen waiting, and Valen tries to hide. Soon, the group finds the floating ring, glowing as usual. Stella puts on the bracelet, and the ring immediately transforms into a sphere before beginning to descend. At that moment, the woman Valen saw appears behind them and starts to glow as well, revealing her demonic form. When the sphere lands in Stella's hand, it emits a massive shockwave that makes the creature disappear. Then, the trio tries to escape, only to find the demon in its full monster form. Kong immediately fires at it, triggering a memory of a school massacre and his body falling from the sky. This causes him to faint, so the others put the gun away and help him back into the car. The demon tries to pursue them, but the wound slows it down. As the group pulls away, they notice Jambo arriving in his own car. Later, at the abandoned military base, the group breaks down the door and runs to the basement, not noticing the strange energy at the door. When Kong turns on the power, they discover a massive machine. Stella says the code on the radio before placing the bracelet on the control panel, which activates a small hologram connecting them to Tom. He is shocked to learn that 30 years have passed for them and apologizes for disappearing. Tom explains that he is a CIA agent on a mission to return a device from the klee project. On the night of the incident, the device malfunctioned and sent him to an abandoned space station built by an advanced alien civilization. For him, only 30 minutes had passed. However, the station has very little oxygen or fuel left. He wants Stella to call the code to request help, but she explains that no one has answered since the incident. She wants to find him using the device, but he says it is not easy. The hologram suddenly transforms as Tom explains that the klee is a project the American military started after finding some alien technology. They tested it at military facilities around the world, and its goal was to find a way to travel faster than light. The alien technology was divided and rebuilt into the bracelet and the sphere, which control the distortion process. Stella puts on the bracelet and sends the sphere to join the hologram, while Tom explains that the sphere consists of 5 rings. They control gravity, communication, time, galactic latitude, and longitude. This means that the bracelet can be used to travel through time anywhere in the universe. Unfortunately, the gravity and time rings broke and were lost during the journey. They need to find those rings and fix the device if they want to bring Tom back. The gravity ring is in Banqiang 5,000 years BC, while the parts of the time ring are 200 years in the future. They can get there because, even though the sphere is broken, it will always follow its lost parts, but they shouldn't stray from those destinations until the device is fixed. The distortion process will pull everything within a 5-meter radius, meaning they must always find an empty area to travel. The basement is large enough, so the group stays beneath the sphere, which Stella activates using the bracelet. The sphere glows, and in just a second, they travel back in time. The group notices the parts of the ring floating above various tents before seeing some people approaching. At first, they think they are cavemen, but a closer look reveals they are zombies. The group immediately begins to run toward the tents, shouting for help, but they collide with a force field caused by the ring. When Stella passes the sphere, the protection opens for the others, and the zombies remain outside. The natives treat the group as gods and immediately begin to worship them. Noticing the situation of the Banqiang tribe, Ithy theorizes that, as they are trapped inside the force field, they have very little remaining food. Stella doesn't want to take the ring because it would remove the protection from these people against the zombies. But Ithy points out that they already know this tribe will go extinct, and they shouldn't change history. While Valen shares her soda with a boy named Morden, Ithie impresses the natives with his cell phone. Suddenly, Kong grabs the bracelet and the sphere to activate the floating ring. After many bright lights and sparks, the force field disappears and the ring becomes part of the sphere again. Kong is still controlling the sphere and won't be able to hold it for long, so they need to leave quickly. At that moment, the zombies attack, and a battle ensues, with both sides losing people every second. Stella searches for her daughter, and when she is about to reach her, a zombie knocks her to the ground. Fortunately, Mordine's mother kills the zombie by driving a spear into its head. More zombies are coming, and the bitten humans are transforming, so Ithie begins to shoot. The noise causes Kong to freeze, so Ithie has to drag him to find an open area. Stella and Valen try to follow them and are attacked by a zombie again, but fortunately, the natives come to their rescue. Kong activates the distortion, and Ithie has to keep the local humans at bay with his weapon. A desperate Stella runs to join them and doesn't notice until the last second that she grabbed Mordin instead of Valen. The group returns to the present with the wrong child, and Stella immediately wants to go back, but the boys need to stop her. As Mordin begins to cry, Stella calls for Tom for help. However, he agrees that she needs to finish the sphere before going back. In the past, Mordin's mother and Valen find a place to hide from the zombies. When the group prepares to travel again, Jambo appears and threatens to shoot them if they don't give him the bracelet. He reveals that while the team was in the past, 10 years passed in the present. To prove this, they go outside and find a massive skeleton in the village. Jambo explains that without the protection from the ring, the monster killed all the locals, including Duangfon. Stella still refuses to give him the bracelet and promises to fix this after rescuing her family. Before Jambo can shoot, Kong leaps onto him and they start to fight over the weapon. When Stella activates the sphere, Jambo punches Kong and runs to grab the hand and fight for control of the distortion. At that moment, Ithie knocks Jambo down and Kong grabs him, thus beginning to fight over the gun again. In the struggle, the weapon accidentally fires and someone starts bleeding. The sphere glows, and Stella, Mordin, and Ithie appear in New Dawn in the year 2224. A group of armed teenagers surrounds them and quickly knocks them out. When Stella wakes up, she and Ithie are handcuffed to a bench and can hear growling from the next room. The teenagers swear that Mordin is okay and ask Stella to teach them how to use the klee Genesis. As Stella realizes she is without the bracelet and the sphere, the teenagers reveal that they made a prototype copy, which they used to create a force field around their city that froze some government missiles in the sky. It turns out that 200 years ago, the city of Udanthani was attacked by a massive monster. It destroyed most of Thailand, but fortunately, the country received help from foreign governments, and together they managed to take down the monster. The city was rebuilt under a new name, and at first, the foreigners helped. But soon they allied with industrialists and usurped all the resources, leaving Udon in poverty. These teenagers became the resistance, and one day witnessed a black hole appear in the sky, destroying the entire city again with a massive explosion. This hole also dropped the part of the ring. The government only saved the rich people, and now the poor survivors live with monsters of all sizes. When the resistance found the basement with the klee Genesis, they reverse-engineered the machine, but no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't make it work. They insist that they need to learn how to use it, but Stella refuses to cooperate with those things. In the present, Kong realizes that the gun hurt Jambo, who wants to make a confession before he dies. In 1964, it was believed that American soldiers were torturing Thai prisoners for information, but in fact, they were kidnapping people to use them in their time travel experiments. Jambo was captured along with Lawan, who spoke English and learned to control the machine by listening to the Americans talk. When it was their turn to enter the machine, Jambo pretended to have a seizure so that while everyone was distracted, Lawan grabbed the bracelet and controlled the sphere. She activated the distortion, transporting herself, Jambo, and a group of soldiers to the Ice Age. A soldier managed to shoot her, so Jambo took his gun and retaliated before grabbing another soldier as a hostage. Then, Lawan activated the distortion again, and they were transported to the Ban Chiang tribe. Jambo used the confusion to quickly kill all the soldiers, which means it was they who brought the zombie virus and the piece of the ring to the past. The next time Lawan activated the sphere, she jumped with Jambo to the future, and a soldier followed them. That man detonated a grenade, causing the explosion the teenagers witnessed. The final jump was to Donghai in 1969, and Jambo used the remaining rings to heal Lawan. However, her body did not react well to the power, and she transformed until she became the demon. She could not leave the forest, so she told Jambo to go away alone and start a new life without her. Jambo wanted to find a cure, but the Americans continued using the klee genesis for the Vietnam War, and Jambo found thousands of bodies in the forest. This is a reference to a real historical event known as the Thammasat tragedy, during which hundreds of students were shot by soldiers. In this story, the military used the machine to cover up the tragedy by eliminating the bodies. One of those students was Kong, who was still alive when Jambo found him and adopted him. In the present, Jambo explains that he stayed in Don Hai to protect Kong and the sphere in the forest. As his last wish, he asks Kong to take him to the forest to see Lawan. In the future, Valen and Morden's mother are shocked to wake up inside a theater. When they try to leave, the building starts shaking and they see a massive monster outside the window. Meanwhile, Stella agrees to teach the teenagers how to use the sphere, but warns them that this will cause the force field to disappear. They bring a monster inside a cage and practice sending it to the prehistoric era. This causes the force field to disappear, and the missiles begin to explode in the sky. Soon they bring the cage back, but it is empty. The monster appears nearby and immediately attacks a girl, so the others fire. But now the creature can teleport at will and keeps appearing in different places in the warehouse to attack more people. Everyone begins to run, but they can't get outside because the missiles are releasing toxic gas, which is already affecting the guards. Soon, the monster corners people against the walls and doors to devour them. Stella grabs the sphere and the bracelet back and realizes she is in trouble because, instead of reabsorbing the final ring, the teenagers completed the sphere with their copy. At that moment, the monster appears in front of them. Ithy bravely pulls on its tail to distract it, and then Stella activates the distortion at the same time the rebels shoot, causing a small explosion that finally eliminates the beast. Afterward, they discover that one of the guards died from the gas. Stella wants the teenagers to come with her, but they want to stay and fight. They also reveal that every time they used the machine, it caused a causality break, which is why they do not age. The machine made random beings jump through space and time, which explains why many of the monsters are dinosaurs. This also explains why Morden's mother and Valen are in the future, even though they arrived just before the United Foreign Forces launched their attack. The mother has a wound on her leg and can barely move, so Valen looks for medicine to help her. The teenagers tell Stella that the aliens' invention destroyed their own civilization, which happened before the existence of this universe. Then, Stella is introduced to a new time ring, which was enhanced from the original. It should be able to reorganize the timeline and fix all the ripples caused by time travel. Stella and Morden prepare to leave, but Ithy announces that he will stay, so the teenagers have an adult to guide them. Meanwhile, Valen and Morden's mother discover that there is a zombie in the building with them. Valen carefully closes the door to keep it out of their room. Unfortunately, there is a second zombie in the adjacent office, so once again Valen has to move silently to close that door too. In the present, Stella and Morden find Kong alone. After sharing what happened, they finish building the sphere and agree to reset the timeline. However, when Kong uses the sphere, he takes the group to the day of the Thammasat tragedy, hoping to change the past. The students are on their way home, but stop to hug Kong when they see him. At that moment, the soldiers appear and open fire, so everyone runs to hide. While many students begin to fall dead, the sound of gunfire and the screams cause Kong to finally remember the moment of his own death. The group continues running and finds a door covered by the sphere's energy. To their shock, they can see Valen and Morden's mother on the other side. The energy suddenly sweeps through the hallway before disappearing, and the vision of the future also fades away. At that moment, the soldiers finish off all the students, and Stella has to hold Kong back to stop him from interfering. When a soldier is about to shoot him as well, Kong uses the sphere to send them back to the beginning of the tragedy. Stella scolds him, explaining that each use distorts the timeline even more, but Kong ignores her and tells all the students to hide. As the group runs down the hallway, the strange energy appears at the door again. The soldiers open fire, and when the bullets cross that door, they are transported to the future. Ithy also hears a radio voice talking about the tragedy, proving that the timelines are colliding with each other. Nearby, a boy appears laughing, and the past group can hear him as well. At that moment, the government ships open fire in the future, and the bullets also travel to the past, taking down soldiers and destroying everything in the hallway. Ethy grabs a missile launcher and takes down one of the ships, causing its appearance in the past. The ship hovers for a few seconds before colliding with the black hole, closing it with the resulting explosion. In the end, hundreds of students and soldiers die anyway. Kong finally accepts that he cannot change the past and hands the bracelet to Stella, saying he will stay where he has always belonged. He also picks up a film from a camera of a dead student and asks Stella to share the truth about what happened. Two soldiers appear to continue fighting, then Kong rushes to distract them while Stella and Morden teleport away. Meanwhile, the zombie grabs Valen, and Morden's mother jumps in to save her. As she fights that creature on the table, the noise attracts the attention of the other zombie, who also joins the fight. The mother is overwhelmed, and the zombies bite her at the same time. At that moment, Stella and Morden appear in the building, and Stella discovers that a bullet has hurt her. She calls for Valen, and the girl runs to her, but when Morden calls for his mother, he discovers that she has become a zombie. He cries upon realizing that he must leave with Stella, who activates the sphere again to leave with the children just in time before the missiles hit the city. In the present, the trio appears in the military facility, and all the rings separate. Stella is too weak to move, so she gives the bracelet to the children to finish the job. Suddenly, the door opens, and the demon appears. Morden runs to grab a metal rod to distract her as Valen uses the machine to call Tom, who tells her which buttons to press. As the machine restarts, the rings join again to reform the sphere. It begins to glow, and the demon does too, screaming in pain as its body disintegrates. A massive amount of energy appears over the facility, slowly fixing the timeline. Stella closes her eyes before a brilliant explosion of light engulfs the area. When she opens them, she finds herself in front of a tree with her mother's voice, who reminds her that as long as there is love, every little thing matters. Tom's voice joins in a different way. Everything in the universe has a beginning and an end, so nothing really matters. When Stella finally chooses what kind of Genesis she desires, another brilliant explosion occurs, and the spirit of Jambo reunites with Lawan before the reset happens. The next time Stella wakes up, she is in her mother's house with Valen, who assures her that it wasn't a dream. Then, she visits Duangfon in the hospital and apologizes for not saving Tom. But Duangfon says she saw him in a dream last night. Soon she gets better, and the whole family lives together in the old house, including Morden, who was adopted. Later, when she is alone, Stella reveals that she still has the sphere and wonders if she could reunite with Ethy.